Okay, rear choke, pulled back with overhead throw. Again, this is when the opponent grabs and is pulling us backwards. So we already know one where we step to the side and drop the opponent on their back. This one is a lot showier and really, in my opinion, is inferior in a number of ways to the last one. But it looks amazing, and so that's really all that matters. So I'll show the move and then we'll break it down here. So my opponent grabs, he pulls me back. Okay, I'm gonna step through this way, and we'll just turn this way. And I'm going to scoop my hips, lift my opponent, and then toss him overhead. So like I said, it looks really cool. How functional it is very much up for debate. Against a big opponent, I don't think it's really as practical as all the other options we have, but you know, it looks amazing. So why not? So again, anytime someone grabs, I'm immediately going middle finger to the bend of the wrist, middle finger to the bend of the elbow. I cannot let this guy sink this wrist back. At this point, it's almost impossible to grab when we're standing. So prevention is essential. Okay, grabbing middle finger on the bend of the elbow is what keeps the elbow going in line with the chin. If the elbow goes in line with the chin, he's pinching on both sides. Okay, so if I can keep that elbow off the chin, now he can't pinch the blood. Okay, he can still crush the trachea, and that's why it's important to keep the wrist low as well. But both of these, very important. Wrist, number one, here is probably secondary in importance, but we're catching both at the same time. Okay, so he's got me pulled back. Okay, with the last one, we stepped here for the takedown. This one instead, I'm going to step through the other side. So if I bend my body a little bit this way, it helps me step that leg behind. Okay, so I'm just leaning my weight on, moving my hips to the side here, leg steps behind. Okay, this elbow is going to stay in front. I'm going to keep a nice tight hold of this. Just like on the others, I'm pinning that to the chest, very important. Okay. With this one, it's very important that I don't try and lift from this position, okay? Right here, I'm lifting entirely with my back. And I want to get my legs and hips in the game, okay? So I'm going to squat. I'll open up here so you can see. I'm squatting in, and I'm gonna drive with this hip. So without a body here, I'm squatting, and I'm gonna drive that hip a little bit. So you can see I'm really exaggerating, driving that hip forward. If I do this correctly, my opponent should be able to just rest right here on my hip and quad, okay? So keeping this arm tight is essential to that, and getting my hips under and pushing that hip a little forward, okay? So before you attempt to overhead throw, just get to this point here. Get comfortable lifting your opponent off the mat. So here, and we can just pick them up and set them down a couple times. So when we're comfortable there, we're going to continue to tuck that shoulder, okay? So we're gonna scoop, and then we're gonna tuck the shoulder as we lean to that side, okay? So there's a lot of weird movements in this. It becomes very strange, but essentially we're still bending and tucking the shoulder, okay? So just like in the other two. He grabs, I'm pulled back, my hips shoot, foot steps through, squatting, lifting, tucking the shoulder, okay? Don't try and throw your opponent high We're gonna lift with the hips, lean to the side, forward, and tuck the shoulder. So the throw doesn't come from lifting, okay? The throw comes from dropping under the opponent, okay? If you try and throw your opponent by generating a lot of force here, it's not gonna work out, okay? We just lift, we can pause there if needed, and then we're gonna duck out and under. Okay, so a couple more times here. Step through, lift, right there. Okay. Looks really cool, different angle here, but most people find it pretty difficult to execute. And doing it on a large opponent can be very hard because even though we're using our legs and hips here, we've still got to carry a lot of weight. And there's really no getting around that. So, this is going to be your go-to move? Definitely not. Should we still learn it? Why not? But your other two rear choke defenses should be your go-tos. The reason we might go for this move as opposed to stepping back is sometimes if this guy puts that leg back really far for whatever reason and I can't get my heel behind it, I have the option to step through this way. So in my opinion, that's the only time you use this move is if you're pulled back and can't find your opponent's heel. So in my opinion, you're almost better off just stepping through, clearing this arm, and putting yourself in a headlock, and just doing one of the headlock escapes that we know. Okay. So it can be very difficult if you have a large opponent and you can't lift them. If your opponent is the same size or smaller, this move works okay. But if they're bigger than you at all, it can be very difficult. So we can step through, put ourselves in a headlock. We've gone over all the headlock escapes. We just have to clear this arm out here and be concerned about the punch defense. So.